Do you need encouragement to turn tragedies into your own triumphant life story? If so, this podcast is for you. Listen to powerful guests who have persevered through challenges so you can gain strength to build your championship life. The host of Professor of Perseverance podcast, Dr. James Purdue.
Hey, for us to, learn some stuff to help us in life. We go through something, I don't care, life comes back and throws you another curveball with you weren't expecting. And so hits with this episode and with this podcast about for us to gain strength, some motivation and some inspiration and learn from each other and how we can get better through challenges, adversities, struggles in life. Today, our guest, all right, she says she has a different approach from what society would teach you on offering about grief and loss. All right, she says she's here to interrupt the stigma of grief and spread the healing of hope into the world. Life is there to be lived, to be happy. Let's allow it back in. So, loving life after loss, Marie Alessi, thank you. Let's push this button right here. All right, thank you for coming on to the show today.
What an enthusiastic intro. I really love that. Thank you so much. I was actually, weeping along there with the with the music. So I love it. Thanks for having me, James.
No, thank you for coming in and sharing your valuable time and insight so we can, do what's called help the next person ahead of us. So,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
appreciate you being here. All right, yeah, we're all going to go through the loss and grief of loss and everything. Some of us earlier in life than others, but we're all going to experience whether it's our first loving pet, mom, dad, uncle, sister, brother, something. But all right, so let's get into. You said you got a different approach on this, and so let's just get in here and let's get to other people. Let's get people fired up and learn how they can deal with this.
Okay, so basically, for me, it was really important to approach things a little bit different because my husband and I were both in the prime of our lives. We were 45 when Rob died very suddenly and without any pre-warning whatsoever from a brain aneurysm. He went on a business trip, said goodbye to the boys and me at the train station and never came home. So it was really something that you see in movies, you think that never happens to you in life. And when it did happen, I just knew that I didn't want my boys' life to be over, if that makes sense. They were 10 and 8 when it happened, and I thought there's no way that I'm going to approach grief in the way that society has taught us, with falling apart and your life is over, and now for the rest of your life you have to live with this pain and relive it over and over again. And unfortunately, a lot of people who have somebody very close to them die unexpectedly or earlier than you would think, approach it in a way that they think the more they portray and live grief and sorrow and hurt and hold on to that, the more they show how much they love that person. And I think there's a different way to approach this. I knew that the love that Rob and I had was very special and very rare, and everybody looked up to us as, that couple. So when it happened, I knew that I wanted to honor his life. I wanted to honor the love and the happiness that we had and continue that. I wanted our boys to continue to be happy and to feel love. So I did everything I could, everything in my mindset just focused on how can I create the happiest life possible for the boys and I. And most people just looked at me as like, okay, she's either still in denial or she's lost the plot, or she's still not come to terms with it, or she's still in shock. People didn't know what to do with me after that. And it's not that I was running around chirping and singing all the time. I just knew that that had to be my focus, to create a happy life. And grief is what happened along the way, but it did not become my main focus, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, and again, the way I'm like you, brought up, and don't get me wrong, it's a sad time when we lose someone and everything. But
Of
again,
course.
but we don't have to stay there forever.
Yeah.
And some people that stay longer than others. I'm not saying that's right or wrong,
Mm.
because we all deal with it in different ways. Uh, but uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
but our loved ones would want us to step out real quick and continue loving life.
You hit the nail on the head. It's all about, like, everything I do, the everything I teach, everything I help people with has got that as origin, as base, shifting their perspectives, shifting a perspective to what would your loved one want you to do? If you shift into that perspective, like if you were the one that would have passed. So I'm just, I can only talk for myself,
Hmm.
like if I was the one who would have died early and Rob was still here with the boys, I'd be cheering him on, I'd be like,
Hmm.
go on, babe, live your life, create happiness for the boys. I would really want that with all my heart, because that's what love is. Love just wants you to be happy. It's that simple, really, and that's what I lived and still do.
Oh yes, and
Yeah.
yeah, the biggest thing, especially losing a parent, is the children trying to
Mm.
figure out what am I supposed to do next without mom or
Yeah.
dad, and
Yeah.
that could be very difficult, and they may have to, depending how they handle it, maybe some
Mm.
therapy sessions,
Yeah.
something like that, but again, I'm like you. I think if you iterate, this is what dad would want you to continue being
Mm.
the best soccer player
Yeah.
or your best grades ever. He's there to root you
Yeah.
on, and let him know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say I had a very different experience, when I grew up. I was 20 when my dad passed, and it was also rather unexpected. I he had cancer, so it was going downhill very quickly, so we had a little bit of pre-warning, but, I was 20 and I thought I was really young when he passed, and I thought I was way too young to lose my dad. And then I looked at my boys, and they were not even combined as old as I was back then,
Hmm.
they were 10 and 8. And I thought, I'm not gonna let you go through what I've been through. I had no tools whatsoever back then. I had no idea how to deal with it. I dealt with it very differently. I did fall into this hole of, what I'm gonna do without my dad for a really long time. Or for me, it felt like a really long time. It was probably the first year that was really hard for me. And I looked at my boys and I thought, there's no way I'm gonna let you experience that. I'm here for you. I'm just gonna so back you up and support you to find happiness, to create a happy life, even though you are growing up without your dad. And I'm not gonna let any of that happen to you that I experienced. I instantly stepped into protector mode, and the mom in shining armor. I was like,
Hmm.
I want to show you how it works, how you can live a happy life.
And this is two different scenarios he brought in. It's
Yeah.
easier when death comes if you have time to prepare for it. Like your dad,
Mm.
y'all had a little bit of
Yeah.
time with the
Yeah.
cancer, whereas your husband he was gone all of a sudden. And
Mm.
so, yeah, that's two
Yeah.
different issues, not issues, but two
Mm.
different scenarios where,
Yeah.
yeah, if you can prepare for it, it's easier for a transition.
You would think so, but it's actually not. Like, you think it's
Really?
easier
Okay.
if you have time to prepare, but it wasn't. I think, what made it easier for me this time was that I was prepared differently through life, through what I've
Hmm.
been doing. I've been working as a mindset mentor for over 7 years before Rob passed. So I had all the tools in terms of mindset. What do you focus on? How do you look at it? What perspective do you choose? Choices. We have so many choices, yet when somebody passes, we feel like we don't have a choice. We haven't been giving a choice in this. We haven't got a say in this. Rather than focusing on the things that we can actually choose, we can choose how we respond to it. We can choose our attitude. And don't get me wrong, with all due respect, it's not about, having a good or bad attitude towards losing somebody in your life that's so close to you, but it's the general attitude towards life, the attitude towards, do I want to be happy? Do I want to heal? Healing is a choice. Happiness is a choice.
Hmm.
I really knew that, and it was so important for me. It really helped me. A lot of people don't have that experience or that knowledge in terms of that they can actually choose. that they want healing in their lives. And if they don't choose that, nobody can help them. Nobody. They can go through therapies and group sessions and anything and everything. If they don't want to heal, they won't. It's a decision that we need to make. And luckily, I knew that because that's what I was teaching already for over 7 years when Rob passed. When I lost my dad, I was not in that mind frame. I had
Hmm.
none of those tools. I didn't know how to respond. So even though I had time to prepare, and I put that under huge quotation marks, I
Hmm.
wasn't prepared, and I was not better prepared than when Rob passed, where I had no time whatsoever. It just happened in an instant. He had a brain aneurysm. He collapsed in the shower and died. There was literally no pre warning. It happened there and then. Yet I still felt better prepared by life and by what I've been doing before and who I had become, who I had grown to be. And that was all by choices that I made in my life. And that's what I wanted to teach my boys. And that's what I'm teaching all my clients now that I work with, that you do have choices in life. You're not just all stripped of all your choices just because somebody dies. And that just because somebody dies, I'm going to put under another big set of quotation marks here because it's not a just, but you know what I mean.
Hmm. Do
Yeah.
do you think that maybe when you were younger, when your dad passed, that
Yeah.
again you weren't prepared? You don't have your tools you have today.
Yeah.
So do you think part of it also goes back to this stigma that everybody expects you to be sad, down, depressed,
Yeah.
and don't expect? And if you move too early into happiness, they're
Yeah.
going, something's not right here.
Yeah. Or you're disrespectful, or you didn't love the person, or you're
Disrespectful,
not
exactly.
grieving properly,
Yeah.
or there's all these it's all part of that stigma around grief, how you're supposed to fall apart and supposed to grieve and supposed to be sad and supposed to hold on to that forever, and life's not ever going to be the same. Well, of course not. How can life ever be the same? But it doesn't mean that it has to be bad or sad for the rest of your life. Life won't ever be the same. That's absolutely correct. But that's the most neutral statement there is. It's the meaning that we put onto that changes it in a good or in a bad way, if that makes sense. We give it the meaning. Life won't ever be the same. It's an absolute neutral statement. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm. Now, when you teach some of your clients,
Yeah.
um, there's no timetable when to move. They still, like you said, have to make
No.
that choice. So don't fall into someone says, "Oh, he's only been passed away a month and a half, and you're moving on. What's going
Mm.
on?" But then someone goes, "It's been a year and a half. What's
Yeah.
taking so long?" Now you're in
Yeah. For some,
between
it's
two
not
different.
fast enough.
Yeah, you're
For
in
others,
two.
it's
Yeah,
too fast.
exactly.
It's,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so
See,
and
yeah.
they got to realize that that it's still on their timetable
Yeah.
and when they
I
need to
always
move.
say yeah, every journey of grief is just as unique as the person experiencing it. There is no timetable. There's no after 6 months it will be better, and after 1 year you've done all the milestones and then you'll move forward. That's not true. That is such a stigma. It's not true. For some that works faster, and for others it takes a lot longer. It really depends on what decision you make and what choices you make in your life on a daily basis. We do have a lot of choices. It takes us a little while to honor that, to understand that, to find those choices in life that we have. And that's basically what I teach, where to find those choices and how to make them. It's little steps. It's really little steps. And the more of those little steps you choose, the faster you come to your goal. And that is very, very different for everyone. And I totally respect that.
Hmm. And again, I just go back to the stigma that you're talking, that
Yeah.
you can't really get upset and listen what other people think, and it's still you. So
Mm.
yeah, like if you start worrying what other people are thinking, uh,
Yeah.
that's the same thing without a loss or without death. If you worry about what
Yeah.
other people's thinking, all you're doing is holding yourself back from what you deserve in life.
Mm. Yeah. I was also very lucky because Rob and I really lived a life of no regrets. Like we communicated really well. We communicated a lot. And we had some of those talks, when you might be driving home from work and there was an accident somewhere, and then you hear on the radio that somebody passed. It might have been a 4-year-old boy, it might have been a dad that had kids waiting at home for him to come home and he didn't. And that often triggered those conversations between us. We're like, what would you do? What if? what would you do if something was to ever happen to either of us? And both of us had this absolute strong wish for the other person. We're like, if something was to ever happen to me, I want you to take the boys and create the happiest life possible. We would always say that to each other, and we really meant it. And of course, you can say that was theory. Like, none of us had any idea that that would happen one day,
Hmm.
So when it did happen, it felt somewhat good to know that that's what I knew he wanted me to do, and vice versa. I would have wanted the same for him. So,
Yeah, I was
but
going to ask
knowing
that
one thing
question.
or doing it is a very different thing. It really takes dedication. It takes a decision to actually live that.
Oh yeah, and I was going to ask that question is
Yeah.
um, again, whether it's husband, wife, spouse, or whether
Mm.
it's mom and dad,
Yeah.
we should have this conversation.
Mm.
When something, because they know it's going to happen. When something does happen, then we're going.
Yeah.
You know, what would you expect? And you would hope that they
Yeah.
would say, encourage you to say, I want you to have the best life possible still. I wouldn't
Yeah.
want you to remarry. I would want you to, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, you would think that
Yeah.
but all couples and everybody, again, whether it's child and mom and dad, should sit down and
Mm.
have this conversation. And they would,
I
especially
believe
with,
it's important we do have these conversations. Yeah. Like, talk
and
about
that
it
way that way
openly.
you
Like,
have that fulfillment, knowing
yeah,
their blessings, that they're encouraging you to move on.
it really does help. It really does help. And you know what? Like, everyone's life is so different. But the
Hmm.
one thing that we all have in common is that we will die one day, and nobody knows when that's going to be. So that's the one thing we all have in common. So if you take anything away from this podcast, listening to us, have that conversation. It really, you sometimes think it's offending people, but you'll see that for, like, very often, more often than not, it's actually relief for people when you bring that topic up, because they think they're offending you. So it's this whole, nobody wants to talk about it, but then when you do, it feels so much better. It really does. I'm just like, I even, believe it or not, had this conversation with my boys, what would happen to them if something was to happen to me, because
Hmm.
I thought, I honestly had no idea how to ever talk to them about it without scaring them and making them think, oh my God, something could
Yes,
happen to
that's
mom too
yes.
now. I thought, how on earth would I ever approach this topic? But believe it or not, my older son, he was 11 at the time, so it was approximately a year after Rob died. He brought the topic up and said, Mum, what would happen to us if you were to die? And, my heart dropped, but on the other hand, I was so grateful that he brought it up.
Yes,
So the
yes.
topic was there. So I approached it really calmly and quietly, and I told him what Dad and I had decided and what's in our will. If something was to happen to both of us, who would be the ones looking after them? And it was beautiful because I could actually talk to them about it and ask them how they feel about it, and both felt good about that. Not that they would feel good about me passing, obviously, but they felt good with the decision that we made, who would be looking after them. So that really feels amazing, having this conversation with an 11 and a 9-year-old. It's nothing that you really want to have. It's nothing that I wish upon anyone, that you need to have this conversation. Yet in my case, I was so glad that I did, because I'm a sole parent now. I'm not a single parent where another single parent is floating around somewhere else.
Hmm.
I'm a sole parent. I'm it. So I wanted them to know, and I'm so grateful that he brought it up, because it is confronting to
So
talk about that.
yeah, that's where you got to know your intellectual abilities of your children, because
Yeah,
at 11, for him to be wondering what's
yeah,
going to happen if mom, I mean,
yeah,
another child may be 15 before they feel they're mature enough to have this
yeah,
talk. So
yeah,
that's where each parent knows the ability and how much they can handle. And
absolutely.
again, you don't want to scare them to death that would happen. You don't want to be
Yeah,
frightful. Don't want them worrying the rest of their life.
yeah,
But we just want to have this talk and just letting you know. And yeah, but
yeah.
I agree that you should be when it's time, and it definitely was time when he brought it to you, when he
Yeah,
came to you.
exactly. That's what I'm thinking. I think we need to normalize these conversations. When your child does approach you with anything, it doesn't have to be death. It can be anything that's confronting for you to talk about. But when your child approaches you, then just take it as a normal conversation. Be grateful that they are curious, that they want to know things, and always trust your intuition. You as a parent always know how far you go with that conversation. Yeah.
Well, this is awesome. Conversation with us and topic. Yeah. So I don't have any children, so I just got my
Yeah.
service dog and
Mm.
cat, and so I think they know what I
Yeah.
would like after everything's done. And so, I mean,
Yeah.
throwing some. No, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but I've
No.
told people on my podcast before, and my family knows
Mm.
if I'm to go, then I just want to be cremated. I hope they have the best life
Yeah.
possible. I said, hey,
Yeah.
if y'all want to save one of the cremation, just throw me on the barbecue out in the back and we'll do it. Now, legally, I know we can't do that, but I'm saying I prefer y'all having a big party,
Yeah.
celebrating life than boo hooing over me. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and again, this is something that everybody's different. I would not say because someone's crying and boo hooing, and 8 months later and they're still in
Mm.
love and there's that something's wrong. No, we all go through
Yeah.
it, and if we're going to
Yeah.
take different phases, different lengths.
Yeah. You can't push anyone into anything, it's like with any and every healing. Like when your body gets a cut, it takes its time to heal. You can't just put some medicine on and the next day the cut's gone. Like the deeper the wound is, the longer it usually takes to heal. And with something like that, that cuts quite deeply. And again, it really depends on how you dress the wound, to stick with that comparison. Like if you keep putting salt in it and rubbing it and picking the scabs off, it's very disgusting. I'm sorry to be so visual with that, but
Hey,
it
we
won't
talk like
heal,
this on
but
our podcast. We
yeah.
let them know up front and upright. So we
But
do.
really, if you attend it with care and you put the right things on to help the healing, then it will certainly heal easier and quicker than when you interrupt the healing. So that goes with any healing. If that's emotional, if that's physical, it really depends on how we address it, what attention we pay to the wound, and yeah, what
And people,
environment we create for that wound.
yeah, and people got to remember it's not a one size fit all dress or one size fit
Mm-mm,
on jacket. That again,
exactly.
everybody's got their own different size, different ways of weighing things out. Now, how powerful or how big do you think having a good um, support system? People
Yeah.
with you.
Oh, that is really big, and I'm so grateful that you asked that question, James, because I think the support network is something that was really, really important for me to create and to select. And that sounds very selective, and I was, because not everybody in your support system is really supportive. So this is a
Amen,
very
sister.
yes, and this is
Yes.
a very, very important thing to talk about. So I'm so grateful that you bring that up. And I'm going to give you a very, very easy checking point for anyone listening to this right now. Um, if the person leaves you and you feel drained, it's not supportive. That's how simple it is. If the person leaves you and you feel better, that's supportive. Super simple checking point. For those of you who have people come in and out as their support network and you feel drained afterwards, try to minimize the time with that particular person. And I say that with such emphasis because I had one of my, I even called her soul sister, really, really close to me. Yet she was not supportive and she didn't realize it. And I knew her intention was positive, absolute positive intention. Yet the outcome was complete opposite. And I literally had to cut her out of my life for at least half a year or a year. We had an amazing conversation about it. Um, so it was approximately 7 months after Rob passed because I took the boys traveling around the world. We traveled for 2 months around the world, which was incredible.
Oh, it's awesome.
And
Yes.
yeah, it was just perfect to get away from all the first milestones, the first
Hmm.
Christmas and New Year's and birthdays of the boys. I did not want to be at home for that. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to show them, different experiences, happy
Yeah. Yes.
experiences. Like
Yes.
we traveled to the Maldives and to Canary Islands, and we went to the Eiffel Tower in Paris and ate escargot, and like we did all these really crazy things, and it was just beautiful to be able to do that with them and to see them lighter again and laughing and splashing around in a pool, it was really the most amazing thing that we did that. And on my journey around the world, I caught up with this particular friend as well and had to talk to her about it. And I'm really grateful I did, because she understood my perspective, and she also really respected it and said, I understand why you did cut me out of your life now,
Hmm.
because she had no idea about my perspective. She honestly thought that she was helping me, but she wasn't. And this is the point. A lot of people think that they are helping you by piling on, and I'm saying that on purpose in that way, their experiences onto your plate. So, how is anybody else's pain helping me when I'm just going through my worst pain? This is
Hmm.
not helping. And so many people think that they're doing the right thing. And they think by telling me their story of whoever lost their husband young, it's helping me. It's not. It doesn't help me in any way. It doesn't make me feel any more understood. It doesn't make me feel any lighter. It adds to my pain. It adds to my, all I need is somebody to be here and hold space for me. Send me love, hug me, whatever, sit with me. Don't bombard me with other death stories.
Just
It's
sit and
shocking.
listen to me
Yeah.
without giving me
And
your advice.
yeah.
Just let me
And
open
if
up.
you don't understand that, yeah, I'll give you the best example, like a really great comparison that a lot of people, a lot of moms can relate to. The worst thing is when you're 9 months pregnant and all of a sudden people bombard you with the worst and most negative birth stories.
Oh yeah,
How is this helping me? So
yeah.
this is just the same, you know. It's like bombarding people with stories where somebody else died. This is not helping me. My husband just died. Why are you telling me these things? You know. So this is just learn to listen to people and sit with them. That is really the most helpful thing you can do.
Even when people come in with their horrific stories, in their
Yeah,
mind, they think they're helping you. And
yeah,
that within good intentions, they think so. But
yeah,
again, sometimes you just got to shut your mouth,
yeah,
listen, and just go, I'm sorry. For example, for me, my younger brother
yeah.
passed away. And while we're at the
Mm,
funeral, a woman comes up to my mom with great intentions and says,
yeah.
but God needed him back. He's done his job here. And then went on and said, because uh, he knew that, saying this to my mom, that she knew that mom was strong enough to handle losing her son. And
Oh
then
God.
my mom goes, so if I was weak, he'd still be here.
Mm,
And yeah, some people
yeah,
just, I understand their intention
yeah,
to try, but sometimes just be quiet, say I'm sorry, and move on.
yeah. You know, my dad had a bless him. He had a very sarcastic and sometimes a bit of a dark humor, and one of
Hmm.
his favorite sayings was, "The opposite of good is a good intention." And he
There,
always
oh,
said that with
there you go.
sarcasm because he said,
That's yeah,
I believe
that's
that there
great.
was good intention behind it. Well, it was definitely not good." And here's another thing I'd like to say. First of all, my heart goes out to you because I can only imagine what it would be like for you as a brother to, to have to go through an experience like that. And I just literally want to wrap you and your mom and your entire family in a huge bubble of love. That's all I can do, really. For me, it's like when somebody comes and says, "Well, he's in a better place now." This is a not for them to say, because who are they to make that judgment? I know, I really know and truly believe with all my heart that they have a good intention. I really do. Yet I'm saying that because I really hope that anybody listening to this podcast will that take, will take that away from here, to not ever say that to anyone. Because if that is really the case, if that is something that comes out of that, the understanding or the thought or an epiphany that he might be in a better place right now. This is only for me, for the person experiencing the death of a loved one, to discover, to understand, to decide. This is like a hidden gift in adversity. If you really come to that state of, you know what, he is in a better place, then it's a gift for me to discover. It's like taking somebody's gift from underneath a Christmas tree and wrap it up, unwrap it and go like, here you go, that's yours. Excuse me, can you let me open that in my own time? Don't do that. It's, and people don't understand how that actually affects people when you say that. it does not ever, ever, ever affect anyone in a positive way when you say that.
Oh, no.
I've never heard anybody say, "You know what? It felt so good that somebody said that to me." Every single person who shared that with me, and I've worked with hundreds of clients now over the last couple of years, has said to me, "It felt like a slap in the face or like a stab right into my heart." I don't think that anybody has the intention to slap or stab anyone with that sentence. So please don't ever use it again.
Yeah,
Please don't.
exactly. Like say my mom, she came back. If I was weak, he'd be here then, instead of being
Yeah.
strong. So, all right,
So proud of
Marie.
your mom
Oh,
for
the
saying
time
that.
is. She's a strong woman. She's a strong cookie.
Yeah.
She's 82, and we just got her back from
Awesome.
the hospital. She's been
Yeah.
82 and pneumonia doesn't go well together. And
Oh
she was in the
no.
hospital for nearly a month and in rehab for 3 weeks. So we just got her home three
Is
weeks
she okay
ago, and
now?
she is back to maybe not exactly 100%, but she's a lot better than she was. So
So
we're
grateful to hear
very
that.
blessed that
Yeah.
I still get to spend a little bit more time with her, me and my
Yeah.
older brother. So
That's
Marie,
good.
well, we appreciate you coming in sharing, and I'm sorry with your husband as well. Uh,
Mm.
but yeah,
Thanks so
if
much for having me.
any good, loving person, they
Yeah.
would say, please have the best life, go forward.
Mm.
Don't forget me. But again, I want you to have the best life ever,
How could I ever?
from this. And so it sounds like you've done that, and you're a great
Yeah.
example to your boys, and that's going to be good for them when
Thank you.
they meet the woman of their life, and it's
Yeah.
going to be good for them to be able to share all that and have this conversation with them as well, to what to
Yeah.
expect. So
Thank you so much for saying that. Thank you.
appreciate you
Mm.
sharing it with everybody. And what they say, all this stuff on the internet's here forever now. So just think, Marie, in 100
Yeah.
years from now, you're going to help someone else during going
Yeah.
through a grieving time. So, hey, go ahead and tell us some of your websites. You way
Sure.
someone get hold of you if they want coaching or mentoring, and
Yeah.
going from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And make it super super short and simple because it's so much easier to remember than all the other links. You just go to mariealessi.com. So it's my first name, last name.com, and you find all the links to my books, to my courses, to my healing journeys, to my retreats. My TEDx talk is on there, and literally everything I've ever said or done is on my website. You'll find all the links. And there's also one link that leads to my group, Loving Life After Loss. So it's really beautiful that there's over 3,500 people now in there, and we just focus on helping you heal, hold space for you, sending you love. So you're very welcome to join.
I'll get those links and put in the show notes to make it easier for
Absolutely.
people just to click on and stuff like that as well.
Thank you.
So, hey,
Thanks, Jane.
we now, Marie, we know the people who are hurting and struggling today. If you can leave us with a
Yeah.
positive message to help them get through today, that's going to be a blessing.
Yeah. I think the most, what I want to share is really just choose your focus every single day. And even if it's starting with a tiny little thing, focus on something that you want to see in life. Like, choose to focus on today, I'm going to see how many smiles I can count when I go outside. Just something so little, it will help your brain focus on the things that you want to see. And, looking at smiles will really help you. It's just beautiful and contagious, just as a little example.
That's a great example because there's
Mm,
days that I'm not feeling quite me, and I'll actually take my service and we'll go people life's haze back to life, basically. I mean, there's
yeah.
been people that want to pet him, and I'll let him pet my service dog, and they'll hug him, and they're crying because they had just put their dog down 6 months ago,
Mm,
and they would
yeah,
thank me for sharing him with them. And so,
yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
yeah, what you said about just go count the smiles and bring a
Mm,
smile, it's huge in itself. So,
yeah.
all right, Marie, thank you for being.
Thank you so much for having me.
And so, hey, we had a little blink there. All right, but we're in good shape. Everyone else is do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your paralysis.